Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, powered by Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, episode number 205, Fred Bird, the NWTF, Habitat for Turkeys, Habitat for Deer, and the Strut Zone. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible. Today's show is sponsored by Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, Covert Scouting Cameras, the Horny Buck Seed Company, the Euro Hanger, and Morse's Sporting Goods. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hey, this is Cole Reed with Stewards of Wildlife. You're about to push play on my favorite podcast, the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast.
This is Caleb Miller from Whitetail Frenzy. I'm glad you're tuning in, because I tune in too, to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Jiminy Christmas, this is Roger Ragland, and you're listening to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Welcome, fellow predators. This is Jay, and from the entire staff at the Big Buck Registry, I want to say thank you for tuning in and checking out what we have going on. If you're a brand new listener, please take some time to check out our back catalog. Find it most entertaining. And if you're a repeat listener, thanks for pushing that play button each and every week. If you are tuning in via iTunes, if you wouldn't mind, please leave us a review. And if you like the content enough and you'd like to be updated as these things come out, please hit the subscribe button. We do try to release a new episode every single Saturday morning at 5 a.m. So if you're trying to get on the schedule and start looking for the episode, that's the best time to do it. This week's guest is Fred Bird. Fred Bird is full speed ahead. A turkey hunter at heart, Fred found his dream job working for the National Wild Turkey Federation as a regional director, where his primary focus is raising money for the preservation and conservation of the wild turkey. A huge and positive side effect of using dollars to create better habitat for turkey is the creation of habitat for all species. Fred understands this and easily discusses his passion for the preservation of the hunting heritage. Fred may spend lots of time in banquet halls raising money, but make no mistake about it, Fred's field skills are top-notch. As you might imagine, Fred is one heck of a good turkey hunter. Turns out he's a pretty good deer hunter too, although he won't admit it. We enjoyed Fred's passion and commitment to the outdoors so much that we launched another podcast with him called the Strut Zone NWTF All Access, which is now the official podcast of the National Wild Turkey Federation. Fred isn't just a desk and phone kind of guy. As he says, he likes to kill stuff and eat it. Before we turn to our interview with Fred Bird, let's turn to Jim Keller with the Deer News.
The Deer News this week is sponsored by the Euro Hanger. You don't have to spend big bucks to hang your big buck. Get yourself a Euro Hanger. Facebook.com/Eurohanger, EUROHANGER.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. Our first story this week, Pennsylvania State Forests and Parks again enrolled in Deer Management Assistance Program. This story was originally featured on the Gant Daily website. Offering white-tailed deer hunters more hunting opportunities across Pennsylvania, state forest lands and state parks again are participating in the Pennsylvania Game Commission's Deer Management Assistance Program, or DMAP. DMAP allows landowners to apply for permits to encourage antlerless harvests on their property, enabling DCNR and private landowners to more effectively manage the white-tailed deer populations and curtail damage to forests and crops. DCNR is now offering hunters 20,736 permits in 79 units, totaling 968,054 acres. In 2016, 18,129 DMAP coupons were offered for 80 units, totaling 973,363 acres. Habitat conditions continue to guide all DCNR's DMAP allocations, the Secretary said, and those permits remain an important tool upon which state forest and park managers rely heavily. DCNR has a statistically based vegetation sampling protocol with more than 10,000 plots across the state forest land, which assists in determining where DMAP should be applied. DMAP tags go on sale June 19th, when state hunting licenses go on sale. Hunters can obtain permits directly from license issuing agents or the Game Commission's website at www.pgc.state.pa.gov. volunteer deer sharpshooters needed for Will, Illinois County Preserve. This story was originally featured on the Homer Glen Patch community website and was reported by Andrea Ernest. The Forest Preserve District of Will County, Illinois, is looking for volunteer sharpshooters to assist the police department with culling deer, according to a Facebook post on the preserve's page. Volunteers will also help set up bait stations and tree stands, field dressing, and measurements of deer carcasses. Several comments on the post questioned the necessity of killing the deer in the preserves. The Forest Preserve District answered, citing that culling efforts help keep deer herds healthy. The preserve said it not only reduces the potential of chronic wasting disease, but it also keeps the health and well-being of forests as a whole intact. The application deadline is June 23rd, and only 50 applications will be accepted, the Forest Preserve District said. Iowa Supreme Court rules against DNR quarantine of CWD. This story was originally featured on the deeranddeerhunting.com website and was written by Alan Clemens. The Iowa Supreme Court has upheld a lower ruling against the Iowa Department of Natural Resources after the DNR's quarantine of a hunting preserve where chronic wasting disease was discovered was challenged by the reserve's owners. Tom and Rhonda Brack and McBraw Incorporated, owners of the former Pine Ridge Hunting Lodge in Bloomfield, Iowa, filed suit against the Iowa DNR years ago. This story has been brewing for many years and came to greater public attention in 2014 after this happened. Since then, it has been kicked around in the court of public opinion in the legal system, most recently with the Iowa Supreme Court's ruling. Iowa's highest court upheld the lower court's finding, which said the DNR's emergency order was irrational, illogical, and wholly unjustifiable because the DNR was acting outside the legislature's grant of authority. The court, however, rejected the landowner's argument that the DNR's emergency order amounted to a compensable taking under the United States and Iowa constitutions. Upon entering its judgment, the court also refused to reopen the record to allow the DNR to present additional evidence that the landowners received certain indemnity payments from the United States Department of Agriculture, or the USDA. After more court appeals from both sides, it finally reached the state Supreme Court. The Iowa Department of Natural Resources issued a statement along with a link to the Supreme Court's ruling and dissent. The Iowa DNR statement goes as follows. As a state agency created and tasked with protecting Iowa's natural resources, including Iowa's world-renowned white-tailed deer herd, we respect but are disappointed with the decision issued today by the Iowa Supreme Court. The department's quarantine of Pine Ridge Hunting Reserve was intended to prevent the wild deer herd from accessing the chronic wasting disease exposed soil on site. Chronic wasting disease prions exist in the environment without a live host. Chronic wasting disease may be devastating to the health of Iowa's deer herd. Among others, this could impact more than 200,000 Iowans who hunt, which contributes more than $300 million annually to local communities. Newtown, Connecticut man arrested on dead deer charges. This story was originally featured on the Hour website and was reported by Jim Shea. A Newtown man has been arrested for bringing the carcass of a suspected diseased deer back to Connecticut. Wayne Simcoe, 65, was arrested earlier this month on charges that he illegally brought the deer buck back to Connecticut from a deer farm in Pennsylvania, a state that has confirmed cases of chronic wasting disease. State officials also said Simcoe claimed the deer was from Bridgewater, Connecticut, not Pennsylvania. In February, an anonymous tip was reported to the Environmental Conservation Police regarding a 24-point buck that was reportedly taken in Bridgewater. The buck had a large, non-typical rack, and the cape or hide was clear of all blemishes caused by tick bites, suggesting that it was not from a wild deer herd in Connecticut, the ENCON Police posted on its Facebook page. The investigation established that on November 5, 2016, Wayne Simcoe hunted and harvested a 24-point buck from a captive deer farm in Pennsylvania. Simcoe did not process the meat for consumption, did not clean the deer as required prior to preparing it for mounting, and illegally brought the whole buck back to Connecticut. He then tagged the buck and falsely reported it as being harvested in Bridgewater. The deer was to be scored by Pope & Young because of its unusual antlers, but Pope & Young, a bow hunting and conservation organization, scores wild deer harvested by bow for official records. Pope & Young declined to score the buck because it was captive and raised on a farm. Simcoe is scheduled to appear in Bantam Superior Court. That concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. For links to these stories featured this week, please check out our show notes at www.bigbuckregistry.com. If you have any ideas for future topics or have any questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Thank you to Jim Keller with the Deer News. Without further ado, here is Fred Bird. Fred Bird, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you, my friend?
Great. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I'm psyched. We're sitting in our respective studios, and this is, I knew this show would happen at some point. Had to, because of our connection that we have with the NWTF and our little project that we started over there.
Right.
That has now been full speed ahead.
Yes, full speed ahead. All systems go, and very exciting times for us with the project, more so for NWTF, and kind of becoming newcomers in this space, the podcast space, and we're really enjoying it and going to make the most of it and get the message out,
right?
Our mission, our goals, and hopefully be able to accommodate to a generation of folks, or maybe folks you and I talk about that 20 to 40-year-old demographic, but there's older folks that dig podcasting, and they're finding their way to it and the capabilities of it, and it's just another option for folks to enjoy themselves and hear some cool stories and good information on demand.
Right, and I'm so glad we put it together. In fact, oddly enough, when I was going through some of my saved content, that I save every single recording that I've ever done. And they're in different folders, and sometimes I find folders I forgot about. Turns out I actually had 2 recordings, and I'm just disclosing this to you right here for the first time ever. I had 2 recordings done for a turkey podcast that I had started 3 years ago. And I haven't pulled them out to listen, but then it dawned on me, I actually had a vision to do this a while back. Of course, the whole Big Buck Registry took off, right, and kind of got set to the back burner. But I needed that right person to kind of catapult this thing into where it needed to go, and you were that right person. So thank you for stepping up.
Oh no, it's a pleasure, and I'm glad one thing led to another, and we've developed a good friendship here and a good partnership, and I believe Dusty's coming on board the Strut Zone train, if you will, and we're gonna all engines ahead there.
He begs me daily to add his name to the Twitter account.
Super excited, guys. We've worked hard at podcasting in general, and just meet somebody like Fred and then lead to where it's led to, and it's just going to be a great thing. And it's Jay and myself, and we've really worked hard, and and it shows. That was the ultimate goal in the end. Let's make something that's respectable and make something that people like, and it's going to be no different joining in with Fred, Jay, and myself over at the NWTF Strut Zone. It's going to be the same, same aspect, same principle. We're going to push hard and give you the best content that we can.
Right. And now we'll be able to talk turkey. Depending on what year it is, we fall in love with turkey hunting just as much as we do with deer hunting, and it just goes by the seasons. It's absolutely amazing time in the woods.
Well, listening to the BBR here as of late, I mean, it's been very turkey-centric, which, piques my interest. I mean, I'll talk deer hunting all day, and, you guys are definitely enjoying the turkey talk as of late, so it seems like a natural crossover here, and one hand can wash the other. That's going to be a whole lot of fun.
It is funny how the turkey talk kind of filters in there when it's turkey season. And we can't help but talk about it. When you're passionate about something, you love something, that's the way it goes.
I think guys that do it and get it, as far as the true blue deer hunter, that's never going to leave their blood. But these folks that have come late, or I don't want to put it in those terms, but it is, they're fairly new to turkey hunting. They're bit, and I think some of them might be they kind of looks one way or the other, left or right. Is it okay to say that I really love turkey hunting? Can I say this to all my deer hunting buddies at deer camp? Is this, sacrilegious? Well, no, it's not. You can love it, of course. It's addicting as hell, and it's a completely, literally and figuratively, a different animal.
Right.
Different time of year, different strategies. You ain't got to worry about scent control and all that crap. I mean, not to get on any sponsors that have great scent control products.
Right. But it's nice enough to worry about it.
Yeah, if they start picking us out like that, I know they can see good, but man, if they can start using their beaks on picking up what we smell like, and man, it'd be game over. They checkmate. They'd win.
I can't put my finger on the brand, but someone was putting out a gaff, turkey droppings scent control or something like that. Rub turkey dropping scent on you to blend in. The funny thing, I forget who made it. It was old as dirt, but make something goofy like that, someone's going to buy it. Sure enough.
Gimmicks. It's amazing some of the gimmicks that they put out there. And some people buy them. That's the nutty part.
That's how I am with deer. I started my deer career. It's like, oh man, I can't. There are not enough toys to have.
That's funny.
I like the gimmicks.
Yeah.
Not turkey woods, but definitely the deer woods. I had my fill of grunt tubes and rattle bags, and doe pee there, doe this, buck this. Oh my gosh.
Well, there's definitely a lot of good stuff out there, but
sure.
Yeah, when you talk about
people's kids through college in my early years. So
yeah, I'm sure you did. I'm sure many of us have done that.
I always thought, man, I would just squirt some doe urine on myself and try to take these girls out on dates. If one of them would appeal to it, I'd marry that one,
Right.
Never did work out.
When I started dating my wife, I told her, I said, I wear 2 cents during the year, Repel, bug spray, and doe piss. And she looked at me. I said, this is what you're buying. I said, I'm totally up front.
Right. And she said yes to that.
And she said yes. She done hunt.
Wow.
Couldn't care for it, but she doesn't stop me, so I got no complaints.
Absolutely amazing. She's a good woman.
Saint.
Fred, let's talk about yourself. Let's talk about some of your history and where you came from, and that's the stuff that you and I haven't even really talked about. So I figured, hey, why not? Let's just talk about our personal items in front of the entire world on a public podcast. Why not, right? Yeah. So where'd you grow up?
Nothing. An extra Miller Lite won't clear up here real quick.
Exactly. Yeah. one more drink and it'll all flow.
So when you're the guest, I get to do that. Normally, when we're doing the other side of the house, it's the Poland Springs for the
exactly. Yeah, you can chill out tonight. Now it's my turn to be sober. So tell us about yourself, Fred. Where are you from?
Where to start? I want to bore all the details. I was raised mid '80s. We moved to New Hampshire. My dad was in the service and moved back. They were both sides of the family from Massachusetts.
Okay.
So mid '80s, we moved to New Hampshire, and that's pretty much, I can't say born and raised, but that's where I was raised. Graduated out of a Seacoast school there in 1998. Promptly after that, I left New Hampshire and joined the Air Force. Mm-hmm. And beginning of 1999, served 6 years active duty, and then went over to Dusty's neck of the woods for a little while, southeastern Ohio, over by Zanesville.
Okay.
And did that for a little bit, came back to New Hampshire, and here I am. So I was a law enforcement security troop in the Air Force. That really did not suit me, not that I have anything against it. It just wasn't for me. So I spent the next 10 years of my life upon my return to the great state of New Hampshire trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Gotcha. And have you figured that out yet?
Well, I can safely say I have.
Okay.
I was truly, I found what I believe is my calling. The Lord blessed me. I believe that. But getting to where I am now took some different paths. I think at one point in time I was learning to be an HVAC tech, so I was doing some plumbing and, learning some trades, something I always wanted to do. Again, I found myself back in the security career field, which, again, never really suited me, but it paid the bills. It was something that I had a knack for. I was pretty good at it. I had the acumen for that. And one day my wife had pointed out a job, knowing that I was fairly unhappy in my employ, but having a young family, 2 little kids to support and a wife and a mortgage and all that. So anyway, she finds this job, and says it's a 6-month contract deal to go work for ASA, American Sport Fishing Association.
Sure, yeah.
Selling floor space for at the time, they had 4 shows. And what was it? Chicagoland, Greater Philadelphia Outdoor Sports Show, which has now gone to the wayside, Suffern, New York, and the Somerset, New Jersey Saltwater Show. So I went to work there. I said, well, what the hell? I have really nothing to lose. I have a job, and let's see if this fires off. And the gentleman that was hiring for it, we hit it off, and I took the job, and I got over into getting paid in the hunting fishing community. Which was changed the years leading up to that, where all of my work was volunteer, and I think most people that get their foot in the door of the hunting fishing community, as far as working towards a paid job, will attest that you give a lot of yourself, and there's a lot of sacrifice that comes with that.
Right.
We can put a pin in that, come back to it. But so anyway, took the job, and at the time, I was a volunteer for the Turkey Federation. I was starting my own chapter here on the seacoast of New Hampshire. Yep. And the guy who was the regional director at the time, one day he sent me a text and says, I'm leaving the Turkey Federation, took another job, just wanted to give you a heads up. And I said, oh, geez, I'm starting this chapter with you. There's some relatability when you're taking on, this kind of role, the responsibility of being a volunteer leader.
Yep.
So you have this relationship with a guy who's, the representative for the larger organization. So you have that kind of continuity. So now I don't know who's going to come in and replace him, what they're going to be like. Is this worth me doing? And now being in that position, I can tell you that's a nightmare situation, especially when you're starting a new chapter. You don't want your volunteer to leave because it doesn't, not every day that happens. So it's very special when it does. So at any rate, I asked him, I said, well, what's going to happen here? I don't know if I want to continue with this. And he says, well, I think you should put in for my job. I think you might be one of the right guys for it. So I start looking around in my head. So again, at this point, I have nothing to lose. I'm in a job that at the time my boss was trying to take from a 6-month contract and bring me on full time because we had such a great working relationship, and he really wanted me to continue with him as show management and selling space, which was a lot of fun in and of itself. Mm-hmm. So there was a security blanket there somewhat. So anyway, I wrote the resume up, sent it in. I think we were leaving Suffern show, and we drove through Hartford, Connecticut, up back to New Hampshire. The very next day, I drove back down to Hartford, Connecticut for a job interview with the Turkey Federation at Cabela's.
Wow.
2 great guys that are now my brothers. We had an awesome conversation, and it was a good interview, and so good that obviously, I'm where I'm at. So we ended up going back down to New Jersey. For the saltwater show, I got a phone call. Hey, how would you like to come work for the Turkey Federation? My jaw dropped. I says, holy smokes, I can't believe this is happening. And that's why I say, it was God sent. It was really, there's about 75 of us in the country.
Yep.
This job does not come along every day.
Right.
Just doesn't.
Right.
And for it to, seemingly fall in my lap the way, that kind of takes away from it. It didn't fall in my lap, but just one thing led to another. And it's, a door opens, put your foot in it and see what happens, I guess. And especially in this hunting, fishing community, if a door opens to you, you might as well walk through it, at least take a look around. So often people are asking, how did you get involved? How do you get into this? I hate the term industry. It's very cold and mechanical sounding to me.
Right.
But anyway, for the purposes of understanding, how do I get in the hunting industry? How do I do this? And then, guys, it's years of free labor, free promotion,
That's right.
Putting yourself out there, working your tail off for products you believe in is one way. That's how I did it. Turkey calls.
Yeah.
Having a love and a passion for it, and then again, when the doors open, if you want to step through it, take a step through, look around, see if it'll work out for you.
Right. So there's a lot of pro bono work that comes into this thing.
Yeah, tons and tons of spending your own money. But again, it's how bad do you want it? And I heard a fellow, I forget where they were talking on. It might have been on I believe it was the National Deer Alliance.
Yep. NDA. Yeah.
Yeah. They were doing I think they do a thing, coffee and donuts or coffee and deer coffee.
Yes. Yeah. Nick Pennizzuto.
Yes, Nick. Yes, who you guys have worked with in the past, and
Exactly.
He's a great friend of the Turkey Federation. He had a gentleman on there that was almost saying exactly what I'm saying. How I forget the fellow's name, but he was talking about the same thing: how to get involved, and again, how bad do you want it? I think for the gentleman in the audience, I don't think putting on a string bikini is going to work in your favor. Maybe who knows? Maybe you'd be funny at it. But for some of the ladies that they kind of take to it easier, it seems nowadays, or they can do something like that.
Right. Are you making fun of my mankini, Fred?
Hey, I'm not one to judge. It's a brave new world. You all do what you want, as long as you have a good time, not hurting nobody.
Everybody's got an opinion. Just don't make fun of my mankini.
Yeah, I hear you. As long as you know what a razor is, I suppose. So anyway, I don't want to get on a high horse, certainly, or a soapbox about it, but breaking in is how bad do you want it? What do you want to give of yourself? And eventually hard work pays off. Look, case in point, you guys. Right. BBR. Guys work your tails off for the last 4 years, and look at, what seemingly started out for you guys as a fun hobby is, it's legit. I wouldn't call it a hobby. You guys work your tails off for it, and it's a great product. Right. A lot of people enjoy what you do, and you can see it by what you have for followers on Facebook and the interactions you guys have. It's pretty cool. And I love the fact that there's a New England tie to it. It's always weird in this community. Somehow or another, something always works its way back to New England. Right. It's pretty strange.
What's even more interesting, and it didn't dawn on me at all, that how far this reach is and who we're touching along the way and where our voices are being heard. And it dawned on me when I took my son on a field trip recently, and I was a chaperone. And I walked into his classroom, getting prepared to figure out who my group was for the day and who I'd be watching. And two of the kids came up to me and said, "Hey, you're the guy on that podcast. I watch your live show on Thursday nights." Like, these are 8-year-old boys, 9-year-old boys. And here I am having a conversation with a 9-year-old or 10, who I don't know from a hole in the wall, just, classmates that I haven't met yet. And they're telling me that they watch the BBR live.
Very cool.
So how effective is that when you put this in perspective about your podcast and social media and live social media? Now you've just touched somebody with the hand of hunting and fishing.
How important is your message now? And now you have to consider your audience, I guess, a little more.
You'd have to consider your audience. Exactly. Right. And I'm not sure I was thinking like that, but now I do. And this just happened a few months ago.
It's very cool.
Yeah. But now I've got the ear of a child that is listening about the message of hunting and fishing and a tradition. That's great. That's all I ever wanted out of this thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right. It's crazy.
It scares me a little bit of a father of a soon-to-be 6-year-old who, considering she could possibly have a Facebook account in 3 years. That's another topic for another time. But
that's a whole other podcast. And then,
for the point, it's an awesome responsibility now that you're kind of charged with. We're all charged with. And to consider that, I mean, naturally, our project on the other side with Turkey Federation, I think we go there automatically because that's who our organization is.
Right.
But for you guys at Big Buck Registry, I mean, for me, outside looking in, I figure demographics got to be 16, 17 to, could be 54, 55.
Right.
You might know, you can tell me better, but I certainly wouldn't consider a 9-year-old being in there, but it is very cool that they are.
Right. Our stats don't give us information on that because Facebook doesn't show that in their demographics. They don't monitor. It's like 13 to wherever. But you don't go below 13. They don't give you statistics on that. That's all subjective and one-on-one, case-by-case talking to a kid.
Well, hopefully a 9-year-old is consuming the product with mom or dad who are also...
I'm positive that's what's happening.
...interested in it or something. They're consuming that at the same time. So hopefully, beyond that young person hearing your message, hopefully they're having really cool conversations after the fact. What did you think of that?
Yes. Maybe we're prompting those conversations like, Dad, can you take me hunting? I've never gone. Or Mom, will you take me hunting? That I guarantee you those are the conversations that might be occurring in these households as it spreads the word spreads that we're having this live show. My dad is on TV, so to speak, on Thursday nights. And well, lo and behold, I've got parents coming up to me now. Hey, I hear you're doing something online. So it's working. That's the point.
If you're doing things for the right reasons, man, I'm a firm believer it's going to come back in spades for you. So
talking about kids, Fred, when did you first get introduced to hunting?
I always had a love and an interest of hunting. Right, we'll put that out there. I've been fishing since I was 3 years old, and that's what I grew up doing was fishing. I was always a humble kid and never wanting to put my parents in a situation. So in my mind, I was always under the impression that we were, let's put a name on it, lower middle class.
Okay.
I had no idea what my parents' finances were. I wasn't privy to them. It was, kind of grew up in an old sort of traditional home where that stuff was kept private. It wasn't the kid's business. And to a point, it's not, in my opinion, but, that's just one man's opinion. So anyway, I was kept in the mindset of we're poor. So I'm not going to put my dad in a situation to ask him to take me hunting. As much as I want to,
right.
I knew enough at a young age that costs a little bit more to do than fishing for largemouth and pickerel around New Hampshire. I studied the law books. I'd just go and pick them up back when they were little pocket size, orange covered ones.
Yeah.
I grabbed those with the freshwater guide, and I'd sit there and read about seasons and limits and all this stuff. And so anyway, fast forward to my military career. It wasn't till a trip in 2003, right? Yes, I had just got back from the Afghan region, and we went to Dusty's backyard, well, kind of, over in southeastern Ohio. And I went on my first whitetail hunt, and that's where I cut my teeth hunting, was in southeastern Ohio. Come back to New Hampshire, it's completely different.
Right, yeah.
it's a great place to
Different world.
see deer and cash in. But anyway, so that was it. Yeah. So finally, I literally pulled the trigger and said, I'm doing this. And that trip to Ohio started the badness. And then it just, kind of grew from there.
Gotcha.
I wanted to be involved in everything.
Right. Couldn't put it down. Yeah.
No. So I picked up a bow. I'd never shot bow before in my life. Here's one. Here's I tell you, I pick on myself all the time. When I first picked up a bow, now mind you, I have no mentors in any of this. I'm all learning on my own. And years later, thank God for YouTube and things like that. But I still forget that that's a resource because I think I didn't grow up with something like that. So anyway, the sight system on my 2004 Bear Vapor 300 was my first bow, and I still have that bow.
Nice.
Had a 3-pin sight, and let's see, how did they go? It was red, yellow, green. I think red was the top pin, and it looked like a stoplight. So I would pull up, and I thought it meant stop, ready, go. I had no idea they meant distance. I knew nothing about it, but damn it if I didn't put groups together in a quarter doing that way.
Right. Huh.
But I was also shooting at 30 yards. That was the method to my madness, and I was way off. And as I studied and I learned more, I was like, whoa, thank God you never got a deer in front of you with a bow.
Right. Count to 3.
But, yeah, crazy. So did the archery thing, got into muzzle loading, gun hunting. Obviously, I'm a big gun hunter, not ashamed to own that. I wear it as a badge of honor. Yeah. And then I started trapping, which I love almost as much as I love turkey hunting. So just kind of being involved in all of it, the opportunity was there, and I went full on into all of it. So,
what was the first firearm you ever fired?
For hunting purposes?
Just in general, just learning.
Well, my first one was a Daisy 1-pump that my grandfather got me when I was 7 years old when we moved back to the States.
Yeah.
That was my first gun, and I would chase squirrels and little songbirds around my grandfather's property in Middleton, Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yep, I've been there. I know that. I know exactly where that is.
Yeah.
So you didn't really have anybody to turn to as a kid. Don't know if your father would have taken you or not, but you chose not to.
Well, he did. I told him years later. Yeah. We're sitting many years later, well after I was into the hunting, and I said, this is something I always wanted to do. He said, why didn't you ask? I said, because I thought we were dirt poor. And he said, man, you should have told me. I said, hey, I didn't want to put you in that spot. Huh. So he definitely would have. Interesting
that as a kid you had that much perception and didn't want to inconvenience your parents to put them out in any way, shape, or form. It's just interesting that you had that perspective.
And Boy Scouts, I mean, I don't know if it's a function of being in kind of back then they weren't blue states, right? I mean, New Hampshire was very conservative, but even then, our Boy Scout troop, we weren't into tracking and woodsmanship. I mean, we were making macaroni salad, arts and crafts stuff, and
right.
I mean, we played a lot of pond hockey. That was one of our biggest things. The Scoutmaster always built a big ice rink, and we'd play hockey like madmen. But I mean, as far as what my dad went through and his dad went through with scouting, there was none of that. We didn't learn tracking. We didn't learn, go out and identify trees with leaves on, with leaves off, things like that, which I wish I had. As an older man now, I'm going back. I would have loved to have learned that stuff because I'd be very proficient at it now.
Yep. The few years that I spent in Boy Scouts really hadn't. I mean, I turned to my grandfather. My grandfather was a scout leader for a long time, and he was teaching kids after he'd gone through World War II. And he was teaching them the ways of the woods and the scouting and the tracking and understanding what you were looking at. And for him to describe that to me, and then I was introduced to the scout troop that he had nothing to do with macaroni and cheese, arts and craft. I'm like, right. I'm out.
Yeah.
And I turned to my grandfather from then on.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to Weeblo status, and that was it because I was like, there's no end game here. I'm not seeing what I thought this was about. Right. I was the only kid that would show up in full garb with my neckerchief and the hat and the uniform. Right. That's what it was about, and the kids are showing up in, I think Air Jordans might have been in, maybe D Brown pump Reeboks, but anyway, they sure as hell weren't dressed like Boy Scouts. So.
Right,
you guys are showing your age on them shoes.
We really are. Yeah. But that's exactly the way it was with me. My grandfather had painted this incredible picture of what Boy Scouting was all about. And when I was introduced to it back then, it didn't look like that anymore.
Right.
And unfortunately, so
kind of gentler. But thank God for the Scouts. Thank God they're still here. They still do a lot of good work.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And I'm not discrediting them, but I think it's gone through changes over time.
And I look at my dad. I still have it. His scouting book from when he was put an age on it, 8, 9, 10, and it was those they were all white faces in it, so there was no diversity whatsoever in it. But they were all in their khaki green shorts, high knee socks, and hiking pants, and ruck bags on their back, and they had hiking sticks, and that's what they did. And in the book, here's tracking, here's flora and fauna to be friendly with and to stay away from. Here's mushrooms and all this cool stuff. How to build teepee fires, how to build this kind of fire, pyramid fire. They don't teach that stuff. Well, at least I don't think they do. That's what I wanted, and it was never presented to us.
Right. Yeah, it's I think we have a good troop here in the town I live in. I don't know exactly, but I do plan on seeing what they have involved. But I suspect that they're doing a lot of that old school stuff.
Yeah, I imagine it all depends on who's leading them too.
I think it does. It depends on where you are, and gotcha. So over the years, it sounds like you developed your skills more or less on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You learned probably through trial and error.
Yep.
Was there any individual person that you turned to more often? Maybe somebody you didn't have direct access to, but was there anybody that you kind of leaned on for information?
Man, if there's one person that thinks they are, and I don't say their name, I'm going to feel terrible, but I can't really put my finger on one person.
Okay. So just a big conglomerate, whatever came across your plate.
I got some pretty cool buddies that I hunt with, and I've picked some things up from them along the way. Conversely, they've learned some things from me, of all places. Mm-hmm. So we're always learning from each other. I mentioned it earlier, YouTube. Oh, my gosh, YouTube. More so for the trapping side of my life.
Right.
The stuff like Dave Canterbury, who's out in Dusty's area. There's another fella down in Arkansas, Ozark Mountain Preparedness. I forget his name. Jerry, I believe it's Jerry or something. But at any rate, I would watch those guys a lot because they had they always had catches, and they always had different strategies and trap placement, things like that. So, as far as a resource, the technology we have today, even people listening to this podcast, you're learning stuff on demand. And I don't, reading's great, but I can consume stuff so much faster in audio and video format, and actually seeing someone go out and do it. And then I can practice that as I'm watching with my phone.
Right.
Yeah. So, I've been lucky to have mentors, I guess, kind of all over the place with my close hunting buddies, folks on YouTube world that have no idea I exist, but they've impacted me just by sharing the information that they have, and that's thank God for them.
Gotcha. Very cool, man. So now that you've got a good system down, now that you've had some years in the woods and hunting, what's your philosophy on hunting? What does it mean to you?
The ability to go out in the woods, have some level of woodsmanship, and to know that disaster X strikes, or whatever, the lights go out, there's no more grocery stores. I know that I can provide for my family if need be.
Gotcha.
That's the biggest part. It's a skill set. It's another tools in my toolbox, because nothing's guaranteed. So as long as I have those skills and I can at least provide for me and mine. There's a lot of romantic stuff I could throw in here and say, but for me, that's pretty much what it boils down to. I don't know if this is vulgar or not, but I like killing stuff and eating it. I can't get any more basic than that.
Right.
Smashing turkeys in the face with blended loads. You'll never hear me say, and you won't hear me on the other podcast say, yes, I love picking up a bow and sticking them. I've gone after them with bow, and I'm not terrified of it. I just hate the end result. It's not worked out for me. I have instant gratification when I smack him in the face with a blended load versus hitting him with an arrow and bird runs off and dies, or I got to track him down. I'm not interested in doing that with turkeys. Now, deer is a different story, right? Because, eventually that you get a right shot placement, the deer is going to go down. But still, to pick up a rifle over archery any day, even on the deer.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Let's talk about the NWTF a little bit more. And so you got involved in the NWTF, and thank you for sharing that story. What is the NWTF all about? For years before I really got a better understanding of it, I thought it was a banquet. And that was it. And they tried to sell me stuff.
Which is probably an appropriate reaction up here in New England up until now.
Right.
We're changing that. But you're very right. Geographically, here in New England, I think that's what most people... I still, not so much to this day, but maybe a year ago, I still had people coming up to me saying, I had no idea we existed.
Right.
We as an NWTF here in the Northeast. And then they question, why? Do you not see all the turkeys around you? That didn't happen by accident. It was by design.
Right.
And a lot of hard work by NWTF volunteers in cooperation with agency partners. It's that reaction is very appropriate for you. Now, other parts of the country, they would probably go into the history you're about to give before I interrupted you.
I have a question. I want to put a pin in this and come back to it. But ultimately, what's the mission of the NWTF at this point?
So our mission is easy, right? So we are dedicated to the conservation of the wild turkey and the preservation of our hunting heritage. And it's for people outside of our community, those two words are very important: conservation and preservation, right?
Right.
People, when you say, I want to conserve the wild turkey, like, well, why do you hunt then? So there's a difference. Preservation, to never touch the resource, never go after, just keep it the way it is, pristine, and then never utilize it. Conservation, active conservation is utilizing the resource. These are renewable resources: the turkey, the deer, the bear, fur bears, winged game. That is conservation, utilizing that resource. We want to preserve our hunting heritage, as in we never want it to go away. So that's our mission. Kind of going back to where I think you were starting to go, we did a lot of good work in the trap and transfer days.
Right.
Grabbing birds from different parts of the country, reintroducing them to parts where they used to roam, and then even some areas where they were not indigenous, right? And they've taken hold in 49 of 50 states, provinces in Canada now, Mexico, even the oscillated down in the jungles of the Yucatan. So different subspecies all over North America and Central America. It's incredible. And the restoration success for that species alone and its subspecies, I don't know if it's second to the elk or if it trumps the elk. I should know that, and I feel kind of foolish for not. But it's right. Those two run neck and neck, I believe, both restoration projects, and that's through conservation dollars, and volunteerism, again, working with state agencies. So we did the trap and transfer, went out there with the rocket-propelled nets, all that cool stuff, bagging birds, putting them in boxes, bringing them in different states. So hunting seasons were established. Full hunting seasons have come on. Bag limits are established by local fishing game. But they're here, right? They're here now. Some places got tons of them. Some are kind of plateauing out. Some might be on the decline. Biologists are trying to figure that out. What's is it weather? Is it carrying capacity? What's at play there? So now our mission is still a conservation mission. We're not really trapping and transferring birds, as it were, but we now, with that they're there, we need to make sure they can stay here. Right. So upland game habitat, our whole Save the Habitat, Save the Hunt initiative, where we're trying to conserve or enhance 4 million acres of critical upland habitat through we identify as America's Big Six focal landscapes throughout our country, recruit 1.5 million hunters, open access to an additional 500,000 acres of hunting. And you and I, Jay, had the pleasure of being in the Hooksett, New Hampshire Bass Pro Shops the other day, and we're in the presence of a great man in Secretary Ryan Zinke. And we got some one-on-one time with him. We had a roundtable discussion before the big media event, and he is committed to keeping lands. This isn't so much prevalent for us here in the East, but in the West, where a lot of hunters from the East go, those BLM lands or open access lands, multi-use lands, he is committed to keeping that resource open for outdoor recreating and for hunters, trappers, and fishermen to go out there and do their thing, as well as utilizing any resources that are out there in a smart, manageable way. It's very encouraging to hear that. So for us, that's kind of where we're at now, is maintaining these habitats, making sure the resource can thrive, and that we're putting the money that we raise through the banquets and ancillary fundraising events back into putting it right in the ground. And we have a fantastic system and tons of awesome staff that work for us that are able to tell us, where this needs to go and how to focus that. It's quite remarkable, really. And every one of them is just as passionate as the next. And most of them come from a volunteer roots before they even came on as full-time staff employees.
Gotcha.
A question often asked, Fred, is if I donate to the NWTF, where does my money go?
So depending on where you donate and how you donate. So at your banquet level, if you're going to a national fundraising banquet, right? Your local chapter does the one, all the cool products brought in, the artwork, the furniture, the guns that the regional director is there facilitating. Most of that money is going back to the national effort, right? But that's unlike other conservation nonprofits. We do a split. So a good chunk of that money is staying right there locally in that state. And from that chunk of money, a percentage is staying with the local chapter, which is kind of unheard of with these other groups. And that's pretty special. I think it's 89.7%. So you spend $1, 89.7 cents on every dollar is going right back into the resource. We're so efficient at what we do. We have such great field staff that kind of take a lot of responsibility on, and we don't have a lot of overhead that we can put that chunk, that huge chunk, right back into the resource, and that's ultimately why we're here.
Very good.
So, Fred, I wanted to talk about a couple of things and kind of circle back on a few things that you had mentioned. One of the things is that the NWTF is focused on preservation and conservation. And in our recent interview that you and I had conducted with Greg Ritz in our show that came out recently, you guys had talked a little bit about saturation, where there may be too many birds. Can you speak of that in a little more detail? Is that an actual thing, or is it just something that they're trying to figure out?
I don't know. I'm certainly not going to speak to any factual thing. I think it's all hypothesis, much like we kind of talked about in that conversation. I don't know if there's actual saturation. Like, so let's take the state of Maine, for example, right?
Yep.
We hear, air finger quotes here, that there's too many birds. Well, what is too many? Nature is ultimately going to figure that out. Is it too many because they're a nuisance to an individual or individuals? Are they getting a bad rap because, a backyard biologist is putting their own 2 cents into something that they ought not be doing? But everyone's got an opinion, so I guess we're able to hear those opinions. I think the state of Maine's got estimated 90,000 plus turkeys in it. Okay. Not everyone's a fan of those birds, but I think nature in itself will balance that self out, because there's a natural carrying capacity, right?
Right.
In the ecosystem. So if there's too many of one thing, starvation, disease, predation, something's going to come in and do a check and balance on it. So rise of the bobcat here in the Northeast, especially here in New Hampshire, where it seems to be a bone of contention with folks. Seen a lot of bobcats, a lot of turkeys. Correlation, probably so. Same thing with coyotes. I don't know. I would not feel it's fair for me as a regional director. Now, if we had my counterpart Matt DeBona in here, I think he gave a far more scientific answer, and generally that's where I kind of acquiesce to him and let the biologist speak, because he's a pro at that. And
It was just an interesting topic that I had not, and subject that I had not heard yet. It seems like we were always doing such a good job to maintain the species and help the species. Like, did we do such a good job that there's too many to survive in the ecosystem that's there? Is not enough food, or whatever it is? Or is there? I think you talked about Georgia, and perhaps the armadillo might be having a field day on eggs.
So nest robbers, right? So
Right.
your armadillo, skunks, possums, raccoons. Again, predation. Nature's going to balance that out.
Right.
Now, if you have something crazy like a few winters ago, and we referenced this in that conversation, where here in southern New Hampshire, most of us had a 4-foot base all winter long. We thought there was going to be a major die-off. Still, turkeys survived. They're pretty cagey critters.
Okay.
So they eat those winters, they eat a living out on, I think like tree buds and sunflower seeds that people, winter bird feed. They figured it out. We definitely didn't see any sort of population drop here. And the subsequent lighter winters, we've seen good hatches and an increase in the population. But again, I believe it balances itself out. Fish and game agencies or DNRs will come in and set new bag limits where needed. Some states they've decreased, other states they're increasing. I've heard just the opposite. In some states they're worried that their fall seasons where they're killing too many hens, because now they're seeing a drop off in the spring, and do we need to leave the hens alone and let these populations rebound? These are these are conversations that are had throughout the country. I'm kind of specific to the Northeast because that's my area and that's where we are and that's what I know. But one in Maine, there's too many according to some people, and you go out to some places in the South and they're worried there's not enough. Should we close a fall season?
Interesting. I mean, there's so many different aspects to it, and each state's different. Each habitat's different, and I know there are a lot. I've seen more birds in New Hampshire today than I did when I started turkey hunting back in 1995. I can tell you that.
Yeah, for sure.
There's the first year ever, I've had many a bird hanging out in my backyard. And I moved here in 2001. Not once had I had more than a flock come through in the fall. Now they hang out here all the time.
Oh yeah, you got a nice little zoo over there in your backyard.
It hasn't been like this until this year. So I don't know if that's a testament to the efforts necessarily, or if there's just some weird change somewhere else where it pushed them down here.
Well, I mean, again with 2 good seasons, and I think it was really countrywide with hatches. They got to go somewhere. So as long as critters need, what do they need? Food, water, shelter, and space.
Right.
they have those 4 things and that equals out, you're going to have critters.
Right.
I can remember it. I wanted to get back to that when you started talking about, 1995. I think I saw my first wild turkey in 1989 in New Hampshire. I was like, holy smokes, a pterodactyl-looking bird banging on my dad back of his the head of his car seat there. And I said, look, there's a turkey. And I don't think I ever saw another one, or I wasn't aware of them until I moved back. So when I left, so almost 10 years later when I left for the service, and that time I don't really think I wasn't paying attention, but they never stuck out to me like they did back then. Now, like you said, they're everywhere. Right. And that is a testament to the work that was done.
It is. And I distinctly remember riding around with my turkey hunting mentor, Ray Fetto, who was a good friend of mine, and it really took me under his wing to teach me how to turkey hunt, because he had been doing it for years in New York and lived in New Hampshire, but they weren't here at the time. Like he'd go to New York because that's where he had to go to hunt them. And eventually they started to gain in population. But I remember early on, we would drive around for hours just trying to find a turkey and talk to people who had hiked over 2 mountains, didn't see a bird or anything all day long. These days, it's rare if you can't get on a bird in the same hunt. Like you can screw up on one bird over on that side of the field and work on another bird on the other side.
Right. So, which is kind of unique for us in our area, right? You go outside. So I went to New York and PA this year to hunt. And it was exactly what you described, especially in Pennsylvania. It wasn't like we're lucky. And I think people are starting to catch on, especially with this push to 49 states. When you come to New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, between our colonial land sharing traditions and just the sheer amount of opportunity that is here, you can do that. You can kind of get in your truck and drive property to property, strike a bird, go move on. If it doesn't work out, go to the next field. Right. Within a mile, do the same thing. Pennsylvania, not so. We were chasing the same couple of birds around almost for one day. You get on birds the next day kind of thing, but you're up and down mountains, and you got to have permission. Right. Some people own, most of the country's under leases now. If it's posted, you're definitely not going on it. But even if it's not, for us, it's foreign. We got to go, you really have to knock on doors. Here, we do it out of a courtesy and get to know your neighbor. And it's a respect thing. And I think everyone should do that. If you're going to go traipse on someone's property that they paid for and they're paying taxes on, you need to at least go shake their hand. But legally here in New England, we don't have to do that, which is, I hosted people that came up beginning part of the season, and it was totally foreign to them. They thought they were going to jail. They said, we can't just go here. No, we can't. It's okay. First of all, I have permission, but, if we don't, it's all good because, we're 15 feet off the road, 300 feet from a house. There's no one back here. I kind of know the backdrop, so, it's all good. So it freaks them out that way.
It literally blew my mind, Fred. Like when I got out there, I'm like, no way. No way we can, no way, dude. There's just no way we can do this. Right. And he's like, yeah, it's as long as it's not posted and, you got to be so far away from the house and so far off the road, you're good to go. I'm like, what? and I'm out here deer hunting, I come out, my first hunt there was a whitetail hunt. And, of course, we've seen nothing.
Right.
But sounds pretty standard for New Hampshire whitetail hunting. But, turkeys, everywhere we looked, there was turkeys. I'm like, why am I here for whitetail?
Right.
So that following spring, I got introduced to New Hampshire turkey hunting, and my God, unbelievable! It's been the best 2 turkey hunts I've ever been on.
And that's a good point, Dusty. Is that, and Fred, it didn't dawn on me. Like we're driving around looking for deer, we're going to my hunting spots, and we're trying to stir up deer and bear. And this whole time, Dusty's being presented with probably the best story we have at the moment is the wild turkey, and we're seeing him everywhere, but it's not clicking to me. Like, why are we not hunting the birds? Why are we not hunting the turkey? Like, Dusty, you know what? I don't really know why we're not hunting the turkeys.
Yeah, like, can we hunt them? They're like, oh yeah, you can hunt them with a bow.
Right.
And we'd be driving down the road, they'd be 35, literally 25 yards off the road. I'm like, Jay. Right. Why can't we go turkey hunting, dude? We haven't seen a deer in 4 days all day long.
Yeah, so Dusty's like, let's just bag the whole deer thing. I'll just come back up in the spring and we'll hunt turkeys. And we did, and it's been
a blast.
A blast. Just some of the best hunting and camaraderie and group building and just getting to know each other that we've ever done. It's fantastic.
A professional mentor of mine put it to me one time, turkey hunting is the most fun you can have with your clothes on. Right? And it is. I'm like, yeah, you're well said.
I won't talk about a story, but I know a story that somebody turkey hunted without their clothes on.
Hey, man, opportunity presents itself. Throw your trousers on. Get out there, cap that bird if you can.
Man. Leave it lay, Fred. I was going to leave it lay.
But the opportunity was there.
Well, we'll certainly relive that experience one of these days on either podcast.
So the habitat that is being built with the help of the NWTF for the turkeys doesn't end with the turkeys.
No.
You want to talk about that a little bit, Fred?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, because so often when I'm approaching people to become members or become active in a chapter or just be active in their community, with Turkey Federation, I don't hunt turkeys. Or around here they say, I don't shoot turkeys. That's how they talk.
That's exactly how they say it too.
I don't shoot those damn things. I'm a deer hunter. Okay, well that's fine. So I want to let you know that the deer are direct beneficiaries of the good work that we're doing as a Turkey Federation. So there's not some secret memo that goes out in the woods and says this plot is for turkeys only. Bear, deer, waterfowl be damned.
Right,
no.
right,
And that's upland habitat restoration that we're presently doing, have done, and will continue to do. It affects everybody. So listen, if you're hunting, if you got a hunting license, you should be involved in some sort of nonprofit conservation group. Obviously my bias is towards Turkey Federation, but if that's not your bag, get up with any of them. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, the whole myriad of these groups have some skin in the game beyond your hunting licenses. And I am a firm believer, and I don't feel bad saying it. If you hunt turkeys, you should have a membership with the Turkey Federation. Right. Absolutely.
Right.
We got a cool deal going on. If you want to go on and buy your membership online, they're $35 annually. They'll turn around and give you a $25 Bass Pro card you can use online, in person. However, so net $10 membership, you get a beautiful magazine that the organization puts out every couple months. Benefits don't stop there. You get discounted tickets to the banquets. You food plotters, especially for the deer guys here on BBR, man. All you guys that like to do food plots, we have a seed subsidy program. Talk to your local regional biologist, your regional director about it. You can get discounted seed and plant acres and acres of stuff, chicory, chufa, there's corn, clover, whatever is good for your area. And that's a money-saving benefit for folks with land, or these land leases that go out there and they work like dogs out there in the fields planting these crops. So hey, if you can get some cheap seed that'll feed the critters for September through January, that's a nice benefit to have as well.
Huh. No kidding. I had no idea that existed.
Absolutely.
Wow. Fascinating. I wanted to talk about one last item before we start talking into some more deer hunting.
Sure.
And make you uncomfortable, Fred. Because the event that you invited me down to was Ryan Zinke, our Secretary of the Interior.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak of that just a little bit more about what that was all about? I really want to set this home about why he was there and what that event was all about.
So he, the big get, right, is they presented a check for about $1.2 billion, right? Billion.
Yes, with a B.
That's going to get disseminated down through the states. Of our cut in here in New Hampshire, it was, I think, $8.4 million being reinvested back into the resource, into conservation, fishing game, things of that nature, outdoor recreating. That's a pretty big deal. And to have that reinvestment back into the states and to have a man like himself that is committed to that, it speaks volumes. And I pray to God he is the president's pick for his tenure, whether it's 4 or 8 years. I hope he's here for the next 8. And beyond that, if he wants to run for president, he has my vote.
Right. Yeah. And he was a Navy SEAL, right?
Yes. Yeah. Commander with the Navy SEALs, and participated in the early days, I believe, of OEF. So he's been there, done that kind of thing. He's not just a fellow that sat behind a desk. He is an active participant in everything that he does, and he's quite an amazing person.
You talk to him and you shake his hand. He's like, "This is the nicest guy in the world," and he could kill me dead with his fingernail in a second, and I wouldn't even know it.
Totally down to earth too. I mean, and that's what's so cool about him. And when President Trump was elected, and you started speculating about who cabinet positions were going to be, man, I think for us in the conservation community, if Ryan Zinke was not on your top of your list, you might want to pay a little bit more attention to what's going on around you beyond, what's in front of you in your deer stand.
Right.
And the fact that the president recognized that our community was very, I think, very supportive and vocal of when they were vetting people. Huge win huge win for conservation, huge win for outdoorsmen and women alike. And I can't say enough good things about the man.
I was impressed. I was very impressed with the man. So let's turn over to some deer hunting story stuff. Dusty, you want to lead the charge here on?
Yeah, absolutely. And getting started, you talked a little bit about how you learned everything. What was some of the first memories you can recall, Fred, of when you started getting educated about whitetail? Can you kind of walk us through that? What made your whitetail success rate start to increase, and what you learned from the beginning, and kind of work through the beginning to where you are now with the hunting aspect of it, and what you're doing to make yourself presentable for better shot opportunities?
I mean, I'm still learning. I'm by no means a professional or even sniffing around that term. So I told you my first deer hunt was in southeastern Ohio. I killed a big 140-pound dressed out doe that was tucked into some briar. She was laying down looking over her backside, and I hit her in the neck. It was actually a pretty cool shot at 80 yards offhand, but at that point, I was still active duty, and I was getting a lot of range time because of my job and competitions that I was involved in. So I felt very confident in my marksmanship skills. So at any rate, that one, should it have happened? I don't know. I think those deer, they just seem to sit still, and if you walk past them, they probably would have just stayed laying, and if I didn't bust her out. But around here, geez, man, it's so pressured. I think Jay can attest to this, especially in the southern eastern part of the state. Yeah. A lot of folks get out in the woods. I found most of my success during the muzzleloader season. That's my favorite time of the year. We have our primitive, our muzzleloader's not really called primitive, but that season comes in 9 days before the Orange Army hits the woods, which is, I think most states actually get it later, right? I think Ohio does that. You guys get it way later than your rifle season.
Correct.
So that's my favorite time to go out. I go out with my archery equipment because that's my scouting for November. I don't really get real lucky with the archery, but the more I do it, the better I'm getting with my chances, I guess. I'm like the last person to ask for tips and tactics on it. I do play the wind. I've heard them mentioned on your show before. I'm a big fan of nose jammer. The stuff seems to work well, at least for me. We do play the wind. My friends that I hunt with, we have a lot of hang-on stands out. I've heard people on your show talk not bad about, but they don't prefer the ladder stands. I guess I'm lazy. I like ladder stands. I like to be comfortable, especially if I'm going to be sitting somewhere more than 4 hours, 15 feet up. I can stretch out. I can put my gear out. I'm a big fan of the ladder stand, but we got hang-ons everywhere, and we play the wind on it, so we'll definitely check that using Hunt Stand or Onyx apps and just kind of see what's what. But definitely, gun for me, I have a confidence level with it, so that's kind of my time to shine. Eventually, one of these days, archery will sit right with me. I hope.
Yeah, for sure. So you talked like you hunted Ohio and now you're back in New Hampshire. What was the difference between the two states and how do you go from hunting a lot of deer in Ohio to a herd of not many in New Hampshire? I mean, the deer count in New Hampshire is obviously way lower than the deer count in Ohio. So what do you make adjustment wise when you switch back from Ohio to New Hampshire? What was the difficulty, and what did you do to change your tactics?
So for me, and I think this is in my favor, not knowing anything other than Ohio when I moved back, I was still, obviously very green in it and very motivated. So I was like, I'm just going to go out there and make this happen. I just, I was one of these guys watching everything I could on Outdoor Channel. I don't think Sportsman Channel existed back then. So it was, watch these guys, look at what, the Shockies, Waddells, and Ritzes of the world are doing. And I'm going to go do that. I got to be able to do it. I'm going to make it happen, even though it's challenging. And so it's just, you have these kind of overzealous expectations. But again, it's like if you're committed to it, you're going to get out there and do it anyway. It's just nice to be out there, right? I'm not one of these computer nerds that gets on there and games for 13 hours a day. Sitting in a whitetail deer stand, in the fall, I guess that's my Xbox, right? So that's how I choose to spend my time. And a lot of the time if I can, I'm scouting for trapping opportunity. I'm watching, fall flocks of turkey, getting ready for the gun season on it. So, I mean, a lot of stuff is happening out there other than just hunting for deer. But, one fella here locally who has created quite a name for himself over the last few years, AJ DeRosa, a good friend of mine, and he's written some books on the urban deer complex, and his focus, unlike like Hal Blood, another great guy, and just I know he's been on the show, two different philosophies, and both of them produce monster deer. On Hal's side, you are a woodsman, you are tracking deer, you are going through the big woods, and that is a skill set I think most deer hunters, most outdoorsmen would love to obtain, given time and resources to go do that, right? Conversely, with AJ, he talks about how these big bucks, these 130, 140 class plus deer exist. They are here in New Hampshire. They are here in New England. It's just you got to hunt them right, and so many people will leave their little like my backyard, for instance, right? There's a little swamp that abuts my property and some other properties that there are some giant deer back there, but they don't get pressured. It's a smaller spot that maybe one or two guys could possibly hunt in that spot. But understanding how to hunt these small lots and adapting to that style of hunting, which is totally out of the box compared to what you've consumed on outdoor TV and all these professionals that go out and they work CRP fields, they work this or that, and they have hundreds and thousands of acres to play on. We don't do that here. So you're either dealing with old growth forests, most of them. You're dealing with mountainous terrain in the middle and northern part of the state. Vermont is very much the same, very hilly. So when people leave these urban areas and they go to the vast expanses of the giant woods or Mount Washington National Forest, things like this, I mean, you're leaving a resource behind in your yard. And AJ, through our conversations and reading parts of his writings and his blogs, they're here. There's no reason to leave it. If you can hunt it, again, our liberal colonial forest land sharing tradition and, being, knowing your limits, you can kill big deer in New Hampshire. It's absolutely can be done. You got to scout them. You got to put your work in. And, depending on your philosophy on the wind, I'm a play the wind guy. I know there's some guys out there that, they don't need to do that. And that's fine. That's kind of where I'm at on it. So I've taken more to trying to do them close to home instead of, driving for an hour plus to get outside of my home range and just, maybe I can bag deer here. And last year I spoke about my back 40 and I saw a bunch of deer back there. I didn't connect, but it was encouraging to see them. And I might put more thought and effort into it this year, and especially, this late summer, start formulating a plan, because I found some huge signposts on big cedar trees back there that I've never seen, going into some big woods. Again, because I'm not like a Hal Blood. I'm not, I'm learning how to do that in the big woods, but little small pieces of fragmented woodlots, you can find them if you're looking. Yeah,
for sure. And I think you're talking there and completely making sense, because the best way to learn any woods is to get out there and hunt that woods, and it's going to educate you the more you're in it.
Right.
That's perfect. So now that you've got some season on you, tell us a little bit about what kind of equipment you're using. Let's get into a camouflage. Are you using any particular camouflage that you think that's working and being the most successful with?
I'm mossy oak through and through. Our new NWTF mossy oak obsession is great early season stuff. And I'll give them the cheap pop on. Our name is actually built into the camouflage. It's not just our logo one. It's in the camouflage. It's pretty cool. But it's nice greenery. It's definitely going to work in well with the early archery season. I'm a bottomland guy, so I like that traditional bottomland and tree bark. But I'll roll with that late season. Maybe they're open country as well. That's my camouflage of choice there, old mossy oak.
Very good. What any particular hunting boots that you're using in New England states?
I got a very weathered pair of Under Armour slip-ons. My beginning part of my career, I was using a lot of, I think I was rocking Rockies, right? Leather canvas hybrid things. And one fella got in my head and said, those things will leave a lot of scent. I said, oh, geez, I don't want to leave a lot of scent. And then I got a nice pair of slip-ons, before I upgraded these, really nice Under Armour set. And I'm like, wow, this is great. I don't have to tie my shoelaces. I'll just slip them on. So the lazy part of me kind of took over. And then, I upgraded to a nice pair of boots. And, for what they're worth, they've lasted me pretty long. I'm ready to upgrade, but I'll upgrade to another pair of slip-ons for sure of that caliber. And they seem to keep the scent down as well. But I don't have to worry about snakes up here as well. So I'm not worried about, big knee-high boots or chaps or anything like that. We got it kind of lucky up here. I can roll around with neoprene all year.
Yeah, I've got. They try to convince me that I needed some snake boots to come deer hunting there.
Here?
Yeah, yeah.
We were picking on you a little bit.
That may exist.
They started sending me links to snake boots and all that other stuff, and I'm like, man, really? I'm like, dude, it's so cold there. There's no way there's snakes there this time of year. But yeah, anyway, so they bluffed me on that, and I kind of fell for it for a brief minute. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I think I even told my wife, I'm like, Jay's want me to get snake boots.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so they bluffed me there, and that is what it is. The paybacks are coming for that. Just don't realize it yet, but yeah, that is what it is. But yeah, it's amazing how the climate change from here to there is phenomenal, and it's unbelievable, and a beautiful place. But what kind of bow are you shooting these days?
So I mentioned that bear, which I still have geared up, and I'm getting ready to transition to an Obsession Turmoil. So it's pretty much like going from a old Geo Tracker to a Cadillac, as I understand it. There's some new technology. It's quite a bit lighter. I don't know the exact weight of that old bear bow, but my philosophy on it was I haven't killed a bunch of stuff with it, so I might as well keep rolling with it until it breaks, or I give myself a reason to upgrade. I had an opportunity to go with the Obsession, so that's kind of where I'm going to go. I'm not really I don't have allegiance one way or another. It was more of a personal economy decision. The technology was right. It had some good peer reviews, good community reviews on it. So that's the choice I made. So I'll be shooting that here in the coming weeks, getting used to the new technology, breaking into the 21st century in archery.
Very good. Any particular broadhead that you like to shoot?
So I've been using the 100 grain Rage, the 2-blade slip cam. I had some issues this year, and I'm not very confident with them. So I'm debating going back to a fixed broadhead. I had been using Muzzy, the Buzz Cut years ago, 125 grain broadhead, which were just stout as all get out. But I understand fixed blade has come a long way since then. So I'm kind of in the market to figure out what I want to do. The hypodermics are very intriguing to me. I full disclosure, I had an issue. I hit a deer this year with those Rage that by all rights should have just completely powered through that deer, and it didn't. And anytime you injure an animal, it's going to bother you, and it did. And I just was disappointed. I was like, man, everything that I've known about this product, it should have done the job that it didn't do. And so once your confidence level gets shot, you start looking elsewhere. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Absolutely. Very good. Tell us a little bit about your tree stand setups. I know you said that you're a ladder stand type of guy. Is there any particular ladder stand that you like to hunt out of?
I don't have one brand as long as I can fit myself in it comfortably. No particular allegiance. Personal economy again comes into it. Those things aren't cheap. So, the hang-ons, we tend to set them on field edges, places we typically hunt here real close to home. We'll set them back, in the tree line a little bit, and not right on the edge. A lot of funnels that'll come in out of our swamps that aren't really deep, so the deer like to hang out in those swamps, and they'll work their way through natural corridors into the natural food plots that are there. We don't plant any. The farmers will, in the off corn season, you can probably speak to this more as being a farmer. They'll plant alfalfa or something in there, and every couple of years they rotate it out. But yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing. We're just hunting food sources.
Very good. I think that pretty much covers my bases on what your strategies and tactics are.
Cool.
Jay, you want to take Fred on a memorable hunt?
Yeah, or better yet, let Fred take us on a memorable hunt. At the beginning of the show, I asked you to think of your most memorable deer hunt that you've been on, and I was wondering if you could do a play-by-play, real slow, break it down, detailed type description for us so we can feel like we're there with you.
And that first one I kind of already touched on. It was memorable. It was my first deer, my first anything with hunting, besides killing squirrels. But I think my most memorable is probably the best deer I've got, which was back in, I think, 2009, kind of over by you, Jay, in New Boston, New Hampshire.
Sure. Yeah, very close.
And my sister had lived on this farm that boasted over 700 acres. And for us to have a place to play on that's over 700 acres is far and few between. So I had that at my disposal. And it was, I believe, the day before Halloween. So it was muzzleloader opener. And I had read in one of the magazines about muzzleloader season coming up, or October deer, and how to set your tree stand, your little babbling brooks, and all this. And I actually had a great spot that had all these hit points, checklist things that they were talking about. It's like, I got just the right spot. So I actually brought my, this is back when I used to drag a climber out. I don't do climbers anymore. But I brought my climber out, shimmied up into this tree into a spot just like they said. And they said in the article, you want to rattle on these days. If you're ever going to rattle a buck in, these are the days to do it. And I said, well, I'm in that spot. So I brought my rattling antlers out, and I beat on them, tickled them, and sure enough, man, I called a deer in. So it kind of lends itself to why I love turkey so much, the interactiveness of it all.
Right.
But I actually rattled a deer in. And so I hear crunch, crunch over, and I look off to my right. And I didn't see any headgear. I saw a deer, and I was committed. I said, I'm taking whatever it is. And I'd known there was 4 deer. I was kind of, if I get a shot, there was like 2, I called them brothers. There were 2 8-pointers. There was a big 12, and there was a basket rack 6 that were kind of all hanging around. There was a pond in there and everything. So all these nice everything, and oak ridges and things like that. It was just a perfect spot. So it was one of the 8-point brothers. At the time, unbeknownst to me, I just saw a big body, and I looked over and I was trying to see, all right, where's my shot? And I had this one small window, and I looked right there. It was about a 65-yard shot. And at the time, I was using a CVA, I think it's a Knight. It's the old striker style, bolt striker style action on those muzzleloaders before they went to break breech and everything being right there. So I had that old school muzzleloader, and I propped it up. And I say, yep, that's the window. As soon as that little triangle walks through there, I'm going to put this sabot right through it. And sure enough, I hit that deer. He donkey kicked, ran about 5 yards straight, hard turned left, ran right in front of me at, I think it was like 45 yards, went through the little babbling brook, dropped, 12 o'clock in front of me, kicked about and died right in front of me. I was like, oh, this is everything I've ever seen on TV. And at the same time, I'm like, I'm probably never going to see this again. And to this day, I have not. Not like that. With the way, just the whole, anything you want to grab off a TV or, any of these professionals, I had it, and it all came together. So it was a nice 8-point buck. If you ever see my silly Facebook videos that I do for my job, promoting stuff, and I do it right here at the table, you will see that 8-pointer right over my shoulder in my screenshot there.
Very nice. Yeah.
Good deer, just under 200 pounds dressed out. I think they aged him at 3.5 years old. So it's just a really, really nice New Hampshire deer. Your friend of your show, Carter Heath, I think he took a quick look-see at it, scored him about 115 to 120, which I was like, I had no idea. I still can't score deer. Not like these guys out in Ohio and the plains say, oh, yeah, that's a 140, that's a 150. I'm like, how do you know? I read the articles like, oh, you got to judge this and the ears and the head. No way, man, forget it. You get the tape out when we get them on the ground, then we'll know for sure. I don't think I'll ever be able to judge a deer. Now, turkey, on the other hand, we can judge that.
That's funny. So how do you judge a turkey? See, we're on the topic.
Well, I look at body size, and I'll look at that beard, which isn't always an indicator, right? Because there could be beard rot in there. It could be, just broken off.
Right.
Going body size early in the season. If you got some good optics, you can see the leg gear on him. That's a good indicator. But I'm going off of size. I'm going off of voice. I like a good show, and if he's got a nice thick beard on him, that's the one for me.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. Well, thank you for sharing your deer story with us.
Yeah, sure.
And Dusty, do you want to handle the 10 rapids, or would you like me to?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get into the 10 rapid.
All right. Let's turn over to the 10 rapid fire questions.
Fred, you've not heard these, and we haven't prepped you for these in any way, have we?
No, I have to assume they're different from the rest of the show. No, I'm good. I have not heard these yet.
First question is, number 1 is, have you ever shot a turkey in your skivvy drawers?
I have. See, they did change
the question, but I had to ask it.
Yes, I have, proudly.
What's your best hunting tip of all times?
Oh, gosh, best hunting tip. Don't try to be what's on TV. I was going to cop out and say, get out there and try. Look, everyone's going to try. This is it. Don't try to be what's on TV. There's only a few of them guys for a reason. A lot of them are great guys. But if everyone had a TV show, they wouldn't be so special, right? So just go out there and make it your hunt. 98% of us do not have a contract. We do not have promotional obligations. So just make it yours. That's it. Have fun. go out there and make it your own.
Very good. Yeah, you got this one thing that maybe it's your lucky charm or something that you take hunting with you every time you go out. What's that one thing you can't go hunting without?
I have a little charm that I wear of Saint Hubert, who was the patron saint of hunters. So I always have that around my neck with the Mother Mary and Christ himself around my neck.
Very good. What's your biggest pet peeve in life? That's going to be good.
So many. Oh, no, I shouldn't say that. I'm not that much of a curmudgeon. Biggest pet peeve. I do not take kindly to bad drivers, and here in New England, we get our full dose of them. I guess that's it. Bad driving kind of gets under my skin. Shouldn't, but it does.
Very good. How old are you today, Fred?
I am 37.
What would the 37-year-old Fred tell the 20-year-old Fred, knowing what you know today?
20-year-old me was having a good time in the Air Force. Hang in there. Things are going to work out for you, and the best is yet to come. Truly, not to be cliche, the best is yet to come to 20-year-old me.
Very good. You're at a convention or in a hotel lobby. Maybe you get on the elevator and somebody says, "Hey, what do you do for a living, Fred?" What do you say?
Well, I get given the official title. I'm a regional director for the National Wild Turkey Federation. Then they'll get cross-eyed and say, "What does that mean?" I say, "Well, I try to raise a lot of money for the turkeys."
Very good.
As dumbed down as I can make it.
What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had eggs Benedict with my son. We went to a nice restaurant right down the street from my house.
Very good. Sounds tasty.
It was.
You get your own billboard, a blank canvas on the side of the road. What would it say on it, Fred?
And we'll work for hunting equipment.
That's a great one. I say the word successful. Who's the first person that pops in your mind and why?
There's a lot. My wife, man, she is one of the hardest workers I know. She holds our house down. Not that I don't participate in it, but there were many years early on that she allowed me to chase my dream, and some wives probably wouldn't and said, "No, you need to buckle down and hammer." And she let me go back to school because that resource was there for me, having been in the military. And the GI Bill had changed, so I was able to go back to school full time. So I looked at her and said, one day I said, "I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to go to school full time and get paid to do that." And she thought I was nuts, but she supported that and allowed me to pursue my dreams. So that makes her probably one of the most successful people for me.
Very good. What's a day in your life look like?
I guess it depends. I'm lucky enough that I get to most days get up and get my children ready for school. I get to see them. I spend some time here at the desk doing the good work on behalf of the turkeys and our volunteers. If it's during banquet season, I'm getting ready for an event or two during the weekend. Most nights I'm home and I get to kiss my kids goodnight and get up and start it all again.
Very good. What's a hunting day in your life look like?
If it's turkey season, it's almost all day if I have the time to do it because of Maine. We're up at 3 or so. Most of the time now with my position, I'm hosting people or hunting with volunteers, getting just kind of working with those folks. So it's a lot of field time and a lot of naps, a lot of naps against trees.
Very good. What about a whitetail hunt?
Not so enthusiastic to get up in the morning, but typically I'll get out there to the stand about before the clocks change, probably about 2:30 if I can, again, if I'm not busy getting tied up, and sit till dark, which is most nights because I've not filled the tag.
Very good. Well, Fred, that wraps up the 10 rapid fire questions.
Well, excellent, Fred. Thank you for doing that. And Fred, this has been an honor and pleasure to have you on the show. And I'm very excited about our project that we have going on over at the Strut Zone, NWTF All Access.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which can we officially say it's the official podcast of the NWTF at this point?
I think we can, yeah.
Nice. Has a ring to it.
It does. So we're very excited. Have the support of the national organization behind it. Yeah, man, good things to come. We got some really interesting interviews and guests that we've already talked to and guests that we've lined up for the Big Buck Registry audience. A lot of them are going to be repeats for you guys, but different topics. And I can tell you, hand to God, that I have not gone back and looked at the catalog of folks that you guys have worked with over the years. But what it does communicate to me and to you guys is that we're on the same page, because people I'm courting to speak to, you guys have been there and talked to them, or you've talked to them very recently.
Right.
And it's pretty cool that we're all thinking the same way, recognizing the same folks to hunt. But turkey community is deep with interesting characters. So, it's not always going to be the guy you see on TV or, social media superstar. We're going to talk to just regular folks as well, because they have some pretty cool stories to tell. Call makers, folks that compete in call competitions, just quirky characters. Turkey community is full of them.
And they're out there. They're definitely out there. We found them on the deer hunting side of things. So just got to look. Because there's some really interesting people out there.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
So, Fred, tell us where we can find you. We're not hanging out in the studios.
So most of the stuff's going to be at the Strut Zone podcast. So if you want to go on Twitter, the handle is Strut Zone NWTF. If you want to find us on Facebook, the handle there is at Strut Zone NWTF. Right now, the page is called Strut Zone NWTF Longbeard Registry. New episodes are posted there. I monitor that, so if you want to hit us up with a direct message, you can do that. You can also email directly at thestrutzonenwtf@gmail.com. You can ask us any questions, whatever you want to do. You got a story you want to share, want to put you on the air. We're happy to vet those and have those conversations as well. We're on Instagram, the Strut Zone NWTF All Access, and I think that's about it. We got YouTube as well. Folks can look up the Strut Zone on YouTube, where the episodes will be there for audio. You can't really message us there, but those other places, you can feel free to reach out to me. Jay as well is on there. Dusty too. And let's talk.
Very cool. Well, Fred, thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah, it was great. I'm so glad to have been on.
I think we're going to get along with Mr. Fred Bird just fine.
No doubt about it, Jay.
He's our kind of people.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's a character for sure.
I think it's funny how Fred looks at turkey hunting as we looked at deer hunting initially, but it's clear that both are connected, and habitat preservation and growth it's all the same. As long as you're putting dollars back into conservation and preservation of habitat, then you are, in effect, preserving your hunting heritage, which is the entire foundation of the NWTF.
Yeah, it's all connected in one way or another, Jay. It's just, different things take different habitat, but in reality, the habitat that you're working on for a different thing is benefiting another thing.
Right. If you have some extra dollars and you haven't joined any of these groups, now's a good time to do it. Because no matter what species you're hunting or which species you like to hunt the most, you're helping all of it. All of it.
Yeah, for sure. And, there's a lot of times where you think, man, I donated something and not real sure where my money's going. The NWTF will explain that and they'll show you what kind of work they're doing, through social media and through their Facebook and their .coms and individuals that maybe have the chapter in your area will sit down with you and talk about where your money goes and how you benefit the programs.
Right. And Fred was open and candid with us in our conversation about where he said the money went, and sounds right. So I'm very, very happy to talk to Fred, and I'm glad we're on board with a separate project with him. And I got to say, it was a pretty darn good interview. It was pretty fun. It felt like we were just hanging around chit-chatting, which is what this is supposed to be, and just having a good time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week?
We do, Jay. And
the Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
I'm going to talk a little bit about food plots and what you can do. I've been getting a lot of people saying, man, my deer are really burning off my half-acre food plot really quick. I mean, they're just annihilating it. I said, really? And they said, yeah. I said, well, obviously you got a lot of deer for the plot that you've designed. And maybe that's the only area you got. But, if you got a little bit of extra money and you can take time and go in there and put up just a 6-foot, 7-foot, 8-foot netting fence, which you can buy usually through your local tract supply or or a co-op or wherever you got somebody that supplies fence, but they make an actual almost like a plastic fence. And if you go in there and you can put your fence post on 10-foot sections, every 10 foot sink a post, and fence posts are fairly reasonably priced. But if you go in there and fence off half of that, it keeps it where you can let half that food plot mature out, and then you can take and switch your netting over to the other side. That just gives you a little bit of control on how much browse that they're actually doing to that food plot. Because, you spend your money on seed, fertilize, chemical spray. You don't want them to go in there and annihilate it and just completely burn it off the ground, and then you're down to nothing. So if you can put up a little bit of control and keep them off of one side of it, let them browse down the one side, then open the other side up and close down the other side and let it go ahead and get back where it's regrowing and actually producing that tonnage that you need to keep them fed right.
Right. I remember Doug talking about that a while back, Doug from the Horny Buck Seed Company, about how some of the challenge is often to keep the deer out before it's time to come eat. Basically, right. It's not dinner time yet.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, alfalfa or clover or soybeans, they're going to keep producing. But, just like anything else, if they get too much browse on them, they're going to die.
Right.
They can only handle so much abuse at one time before they just, they're not as strong. They're not real strong where they can recover from that down to the dirt browse. I mean, when they trim it off right at the dirt, it's hard for it to recover.
Right, exactly. Well, excellent tip. Thank you to Morse's Sporting Goods for sponsoring the Chubby Tines Tip of the Week. Thank you to our other sponsors, Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, Covert Scouting Cameras, the Euro Hanger, and Morse's Sporting Goods. Without those guys, we cannot produce this show, and we get behind all of those products. We truly believe in all these products that we bring to this show. And Dusty, where can we find you when you're not hanging out here in the studios with me?
Shoot me an email, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. You can look me up on Instagram and Twitter @ChasingAntler, Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. Jay, where can the people reach out to you? Or on the mic?
Likewise, you can shoot me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com, and you can visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Twitter, which is twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Instagram, instagram.com/bigbuckregistry, and YouTube, which is youtube.com/bigbuckregistry. On YouTube, you can listen to all of our podcasts in their entirety. As far as videos are concerned, it's a boring video, but the audio content is there, so you can actually listen to our podcast. You can also listen to all of our live shows that we've done on Thursday nights when we do them, and we've gone back and re-interviewed a lot of our previous guests we had on the show just to put a face to a voice, let's put it that way. You can always listen to our show on other places as well, not just YouTube. We're found on iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, and Blueberry. And if you would like to submit a buck to our page for consideration and be featured on our page in front of 250,000 diehard deer hunting fans, all you have to do is go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, and all of the instructions will be right there. I think that's pretty much everywhere we're at. Just want to give one more shout out to all of our sponsors, Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, Covert Scouting Cameras, the Horny Buck Seed Company, the Euro Hanger, and Morse's Sporting Goods. I think that's a wrap, Dusty.
That's a whole lot of big buck, Jay.
Sure is. I'm Jay Scott.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
And this is the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.